Living on your knees is not life. It's a silent sentence that many accept without realizing it. You get used to staying quiet when you should speak, to giving in when you should say no, to carrying blames that don't belong to you, and to begging for respect, as if it were a privilege. This submission, disguised as kindness, patience, or false strength, is nothing more than the gradual loss of your dignity. Stoicism reminds us that nothing external has power over us unless we give it to them. But when you tolerate dynamics that emotionally weaken you, when you justify the unjustifiable, or when you live trying to prove your worth, you give up your own strength. And that's when pain becomes a habit, when the wound stops bleeding because you've accepted living hurt. This video is not for those who seek pretty words or phrases that sweeten reality. It's for those who are tired of bowing their heads, of being manipulated by the fear of rejection, of hiding their pain behind a forced smile, of giving everything while being left empty. Here we will talk about boundaries, self-respect, authenticity, and the courage to walk upright, even if it hurts. Dignity is not asked for, it is imposed with actions. And the practices you are going to learn are not theory. They are tools that you can apply from today to stop being an accomplice to your own weakness. Because the day you decide not to submit anymore, that day begins your true freedom. Here we don't come to survive in silence. We come to regain the strength of living standing up. 1. Say no with firmness and authenticity. A wall that cracks from a single fissure sooner or later collapses. The same happens with you when you don't know how to say no. Each unjustified concession becomes a crack that weakens your character and self-respect. Most people fear pronouncing that short word because they associate no with rejection, with losing affection, or with raising conflicts. But the truth is that always saying yes is the fastest way to betray yourself and live subjected to the will of others. Saying no firmly does not mean being cruel or selfish. It means marking the boundary that protects your dignity. When you say yes to everything, your life ceases to be yours and becomes an open field where anyone decides, opines, and takes what they want. Stoicism teaches that freedom begins in the mind and is strengthened in action, and one of the most powerful actions is the simple fact of refusing what does not correspond to you. How to avoid falling into the trap of giving in out of fear. The first thing is to recognize that your time and energy are limited resources, non-renewable, and that giving them away without measure to others leaves you empty for yourself. A daily practice can be to stop before responding to any request and ask yourself if you really want to do it, or if you only accept it to avoid discomfort. That brief pause allows you to decide from consciousness and not from guilt. Another tip is to learn to use phrases that close the door without the need for long explanations, because authenticity does not require justification. A no, said calmly and confidently, is enough. You can say it politely, but never with doubt. Practice in the everyday, from the smallest things, like rejecting an unnecessary commitment or not accepting conversations that you know do not contribute to you. Each time you do, you will be reinforcing your wall, preventing it from cracking. It is also key to recognize that people who are offended by your boundaries were never interested in you, but in what they obtained from your lack of them. Whoever respects you does not need you to say yes to everything. Whoever appreciates you values your sincerity more than your submission. The fear of losing transforms into freedom when you understand that the only thing you cannot lose is yourself. Saying no is an act of respect towards you and, paradoxically, an act of respect towards others, because it shows them your true place and teaches them how far they can go. Each no you pronounce with firmness is a reminder that your life is not for sale, that your dignity is not negotiable, and that your value does not depend on how many times you give in, but on how many times you remain true to who you are. Learning to say no is the first step to walking upright, because as long as you don't, you will continue building a wall full of cracks that anyone can cross. 2. Forgive without forgetting the lesson. A fire leaves ashes even if you manage to put out the flames. That's how forgiveness works. It extinguishes the fire of resentment, but the ashes are the memory that reminds you where the danger was. Many confuse forgiveness with erasing everything, with pretending that nothing happened, with opening the door again to the same harm. This mistake is what turns forgiveness into a trap, because without memory, you end up repeating the story and handing over your dignity to the one who already trampled on it. Forgiving without forgetting is an act of inner strength. Forgiveness frees your mind from the weight of anger, because prolonged resentment is like carrying a burning coal, hoping to burn the other, but the one who ends up burning is you. However, not forgetting the lesson means learning to recognize the patterns that led to that pain and using that learning as armor. Stoicism teaches that what hurts us is not the fact itself, but the way we choose to interpret it and how we respond. Therefore, forgiving without memory is naivety, but forgiving remembering is wisdom. How to put it into practice? Start by recognizing that forgiving does not mean reconciling with everyone. You can release the emotional burden and at the same time take distance. The first advice is to separate the emotion from the fact. Write down what happened, what you felt, and what you learned. This exercise allows you to see the situation from the outside without getting trapped in the wound. Once you understand it, you can let go of resentment, but keep the lesson as a guide. Another piece of advice is to set a clear boundary with the person who failed you. It's not about blindly trusting again, but deciding from where you want to relate. If the person shows real changes, you may allow a new beginning with caution, but if they remain the same, your decision to keep distance is also part of forgiveness, because you choose peace over repeating the pain. It's also important to remember that forgiving yourself is essential. Many times, you carry more guilt than the harm received. Ask yourself, what real responsibility did I have? What part was out of my control? Self-forgiveness is the step that prevents you from living chained to guilt, and at the same time prepares you not to fall into the same traps. Finally, adopt a closing ritual. It could be writing a letter you'll never send. It could be speaking aloud what you decide to let go, or simply a meditation where you thank the lesson. Stoicism does not seek to turn you into stone, but into someone capable of transforming each wound into wisdom. Forgiving without forgetting is not coldness, it's emotional intelligence. That is to say, I let go of the weight that binds me, but I keep the lesson that protects me. In this way, you turn the fire that burned you into light for your path, and ensure that your dignity is never again placed in the wrong hands. 3. Turning rejection into freedom. Rejection is like a door slamming shut in your face. The noise hurts, it leaves an echo in your chest. But if you look up, you discover that it was not the only entrance, that there were always other paths waiting. The problem is that many people freeze in front of that closed door, convinced that their worth depended on someone else accepting them. This illusion is what turns rejection into a sentence, when in reality, it can be the beginning of your true freedom. Accepting rejection as a natural part of life is a deeply stoic principle. You can't control what others think of you, nor can you force anyone to value you, but you can decide how to interpret that refusal. When someone does not choose you, does not validate you, or does not recognize your effort, what they are really doing is showing you that not everything depends on you, and there arises the opportunity to let go of the need for approval. How to put it into practice? First, stop associating rejection with your identity. A criticism, a no, or indifference do not mean that you are worth less. They mean that you do not fit in that place, with that person, or at that moment. The advice is to change the question. Instead of, what did I do wrong? Ask yourself, what can I do with this freedom that opens up now? This simple mental variation transforms the wound into a new space where you can grow. Second, create a healthier relationship with failure. Each rejection is valuable information. It shows you what did not work. It reveals where you do not need to invest more energy. The advice here is to keep a personal record. Write down each situation in which you were rejected and write what learning is hidden behind it. Over time, you will see that what seemed like defeat was actually a disguised liberation. Another practical advice is to work on emotional self-sufficiency. When your worth depends on external validation, any closed door becomes a collapse. But if you strengthen your inner world, if you develop activities, habits, and passions that support you, then rejection loses power because your life is not defined in the eyes of others. Finally, learn to appreciate rejection. You may not see it instantly, but many rejections have prevented you from getting stuck in places that did not belong to you. You can even practice a stoic gratitude exercise. Every time someone rejects you, write down 3 possible benefits that this refusal could bring to your life. At first, it will be hard, but over time you will discover that each no is also a way to redirect your path. Rejection stops being a wound when you understand that it does not take anything away from you. It only clears the ground of what was not yours. Turning it into freedom is remembering that you do not need other people's doors to walk, because your dignity does not depend on being accepted. It depends on you continuing to move forward without kneeling to anyone's opinion. 4. Living without justifying your existence. There are people who walk as if they were carrying an invisible sign around their neck that says, "I'm worth it, believe me." They strive to prove it with every word, every gesture, every sacrifice. That weight not only tires, it also slowly consumes the essence of the one who carries it. When you live trying to justify your existence, you end up becoming an actor in a play you didn't write, playing a role you never asked for. Stoicism teaches that the only thing we need to be worthy is to be alive, because nature has already granted us a place in the world. You don't have to convince anyone that you deserve respect. You don't have to prove your worth with constant achievements, nor sacrifice your peace for someone to accept you. When you fall into that trap, you become a slave to external gazes, and every step you take is to please, not to advance. How to break this dynamic? First, understand that you are not a project pending approval. Your value does not depend on how many goals you achieve or how many people applaud you. Your value is already given by the mere fact of being. A practical advice is to stop explaining every decision you make, because every unnecessary explanation is a way of asking for permission to exist. Practice strategic silence. When you decide something important, do it confidently without adorning with justifications. Second, work on the consistency between what you think, say, and do. If you live according to your principles, you don't need to prove anything because your life itself speaks for you. Do a simple exercise. Write down 3 values that you consider essential and check if your daily actions reflect them. When there is consistency, the need to justify fades because you realize that you are already living in your truth. Another tip is to learn to tolerate the judgment of others. There will always be those who criticize, who minimize, who question. The problem is not the opinion of others, but your reaction to it. Here applies the Stoic dichotomy of control. You cannot control what they think, but you can control how much of that you let into your life. The daily practice is to ask yourself, does this define me, or does it only reflect the other's limited vision? Finally, surround yourself with environments that do not demand you to constantly prove yourself. If someone only values you for what you deliver and not for who you are, that relationship is a stage where you will always be a supporting actor. Choose bonds where authenticity is not negotiated, where you can show yourself without masks and without the need to justify every step. To stop justifying your existence is to regain the peace of walking lightly, without signs, without masks, without that obsession to prove. It is to remember that life is not about convincing anyone of your worth, but about living it firmly. The day you decide not to ask for permission to exist, that day your true freedom begins. 5. Choose progress over perfection. Perfection is like a mirage in the middle of the desert. It looks like crystal clear water in the distance. You run towards it with all your strength, and when you think you are close, it fades away, leaving only more sand. That's how the obsession with doing everything flawlessly works. You never get there. It's never enough. There's always one more detail missing. This habit, far from propelling you, ends up chaining you to constant wear and tear and frustration because you live measuring your worth with an impossible standard. Stoicism teaches that life does not demand perfection, it demands consistency. What defines your character is not reaching an unattainable ideal, but taking real steps, even if they are small. Progress is the path of those who understand that movement, however minimal, is better than standing still, waiting for the perfect moment. While some lose years correcting what will never be fully corrected, others move forward with mistakes, learn, and grow. How to choose progress over perfection. First, change your way of measuring success. Instead of asking yourself if you did it flawlessly, ask yourself if today you're a little better than yesterday. This perspective transforms your energy because every advance, however small, becomes a real victory. A practical tip is to keep a record of daily progress, not failures. Write down what you did today that brings you closer to your goals and celebrate that step, even if it wasn't perfect. Second, learn to live with mistakes. The perfectionist sees them as threats to their worth, but the one who seeks progress recognizes them as teachers. The practice is simple. Every time you fail, instead of punishing yourself, write down 3 learnings you can take away from that experience. This way you turn what seemed like defeat into growth and strengthen the stoic mindset of turning adversity into opportunity. Another tip is to avoid the trap of comparison. Perfectionism feeds on the mirage of others, believing that everyone does it better than you. Remember that what you see outside is only the facade, not the whole truth. Instead of looking at what others achieve, focus your attention on your own journey. Progress is individual, and your path does not have to resemble anyone else's. Finally, surround yourself with practical actions that break the paralysis of perfectionism. If you wait for everything to be ready to start, you will never start. Decide to move forward with what you have. The advice is to apply the 80% rule. If something is good enough to fulfill its purpose, launch it, do it, move it. This habit trains your mind to value action over the illusion of perfection. Choosing progress over perfection is choosing freedom over the slavery of the unattainable. It is accepting that your dignity does not depend on being flawless, but on being consistent, disciplined, and real. Every step you take, even if it is not perfect, is a declaration that you are moving forward, and that progress is what makes you strong. 6. Respect yourself to project respect. A mirror only reflects what is in front of it. If what you place in front of it is insecurity, doubt, and lack of boundaries, that same thing will return to you in the form of contempt and manipulation. But if what you show is firmness, clarity, and self-respect, the reflection will be completely different, because others learn to treat you the way you treat yourself. Respecting yourself is not a gesture of vanity. It is a basic necessity to maintain your dignity. Whoever does not respect themselves ends up accepting the unacceptable, justifying the unjustifiable, and enduring what deep down they know they do not deserve. Stoicism teaches that you cannot control the attitude of others, but you can control the standard with which you decide to live, and when you raise that standard, the world perceives it. How to start practicing self-respect. The first advice is to take care of your word. Every time you promise something and do not fulfill it, you disrespect yourself because your voice loses value. Commit only to what you can really sustain and fulfill it with discipline. This consistency strengthens you and projects solidity to others. Second, learn to establish visible boundaries. It is not enough to feel that something displeases you, you have to express it. Respect is projected when you clearly say, "This is where I stop, and this is where you stop." A practical exercise is to start with the everyday, like not allowing constant interruptions when you speak or not accepting hurtful comments disguised as jokes. By setting those boundaries, you teach how you want to be treated. Another piece of advice is to take care of your environment. Respecting yourself also means not exposing yourself to environments that corrode your value. Ask yourself, does this space strengthen or weaken me? If you discover that what surrounds you only feeds insecurity and wear, self-respect forces you to distance yourself. It's not selfishness, it's emotional survival. It is also important to take care of your body and mind. The way you eat, rest, and train reflects how much you value yourself. It's not about seeking a physical ideal, but showing yourself that you deserve attention and care. This discipline translates into projected respect because whoever takes care of themselves sends a silent message that they know their worth. Lastly, stop apologizing for existing. Every time you minimize your achievements, every time you shrink so as not to disturb, you reinforce the idea that your presence is less important. Self-respect is cultivated by speaking clearly, occupying your space without fear, and recognizing what you do well without falling into arrogance. When you start to truly respect yourself, something changes in your gaze, in your posture, in your voice. You no longer ask for respect, you impose it with your presence. And that reflection is impossible to ignore because the world ends up treating you with the same dignity that you have decided to demand first. 7. Love with wise boundaries. Love without limits resembles an overflowing river. At first it seems abundant, powerful, but soon it destroys everything in its path. What is given without measure ends up sweeping away because surrender without control does not build, it wears out. Whoever loves without setting boundaries becomes a slave to their own affection, confusing sacrifice with affection and dependence with commitment. Loving with wise boundaries does not mean giving less, it means giving fairly, from dignity and not from submission. Stoicism teaches that everything we give should be governed by reason and not by impulse. If your love becomes a permission for others to hurt you, what you call love is actually a self-abandonment. How to practice it in daily life? First, define what you are willing to accept and what you are not. Make a list of behaviors that are unacceptable to you in a relationship, whether it's a couple, friendship, or family. This exercise allows you to have clarity before emotion clouds you. When these behaviors appear, do not justify or gloss over them. Put an immediate stop to them. Second, remember that saying no is also loving. Many times setting a limit is the greatest act of love because it protects both your integrity and that of the other. If you accept everything, even what destroys you, you end up feeding toxic dynamics that sooner or later explode. Practice saying no without guilt, calmly and firmly, as a sign that you value what you feel, but also what you are. Another tip is not to confuse surrender with self-sacrifice. Loving is not nullifying oneself, nor keeping quiet, nor always giving in. Healthy love involves reciprocity. Evaluate your relationships. Do you give much more than you receive? Do you always strive while the other only demands? If the balance is unbalanced, that bond is not love, it is wear and tear. Adjust what you give so that you do not end up empty. It is also essential to communicate your needs without fear. Loving with wise boundaries is not building walls. It is drawing clear boundaries and explaining them honestly. Say what you need, express what you do not tolerate, and maintain that consistency with your actions. If someone is offended because you have boundaries, it is because they were looking to take advantage of your lack of them. Finally, remember that loving wisely begins with you. Self-love is the measure with which you calculate what you give and what you allow to receive. If you respect yourself, you will not accept crumbs disguised as affection, nor sweet words that come with contempt. Loving with wise boundaries is choosing relationships that add and closing the door to those that try to break your dignity. True love does not destroy, it builds. And only when you decide to love with clear boundaries can you build bonds where surrender is not slavery, but shared freedom. 8. Use your voice against injustice. Silence in the face of injustice is like watching someone drive a knife into an open wound and standing still, hoping the pain will disappear on its own. Holding back your voice does not quench aggression, it fuels it. Every time you choose to remain silent when you should speak, the message you send is one of permission. And what you silently tolerate today becomes the norm tomorrow. Stoicism teaches that we should not fear the judgment of others when we stand up for what is right, because what depends on us is to remain true to the truth. The voice is not just an instrument for speaking, it is a weapon of clarity, of boundaries, and of dignity. If you don't use it, you end up living on a stage where others write your story and you merely whisper in the background. How to start using your voice against injustice? First, recognize that speaking does not mean shouting or losing control. It means naming what is wrong with firmness and calm. A practical tip is to train yourself in small situations. If someone makes a comment that makes you uncomfortable, say it at the moment with clarity, without embellishments. Each time you express your discomfort, you reinforce the idea that your dignity is not for sale. Second, avoid justifying yourself when you defend your boundaries. Those who always explain themselves end up weakening their message. Your voice is stronger when it is brief, direct, and confident. Practice short phrases that mark boundaries. That is not acceptable. Don't talk to me like that. Stop. You don't need long speeches to make it clear that you won't tolerate mistreatment. Another tip is to lose the fear of causing discomfort. Injustice always relies on the comfort of others' silence. Each time you speak, you shake that comfort and force the other person to confront their behavior. At first, it may be uncomfortable, but remember that respect never comes from pleasing, but from clearly showing what you will not allow. It is also essential to work on consistency. It is useless to speak against injustice if your actions contradict your words. Use your voice, but also back it up with firm decisions. If you denounce toxic behavior, don't continue to feed that relationship. If you point out mistreatment, don't justify it in silence again. Consistency is what gives real strength to your voice. Finally, understand that your voice not only protects you, but also inspires others. Many people remain silent out of fear, but when someone dares to speak, they break the spell of submission and open up space for others to do the same. By using your voice against injustice, you not only defend your dignity, but also sow an example of courage that can transform your environment. Silence in the face of abuse is never neutrality, it is complicity. Your voice, used with firmness and without fear, is the sign that you do not accept living in submission. And each word you pronounce with bravery is a brick in the wall that protects your dignity. 9. Honor your pain without denying it. Pain is like a shadow that always accompanies you, even if you try to run faster or turn off the light to not see it. The more you avoid it, the larger and darker it becomes. Many prefer to deny what they feel, hiding their wounds under a forced smile, as if ignoring the suffering was enough to make it disappear. But pain doesn't disappear when you silence it. It sinks within you and ends up secretly ruling your life. Honoring your pain means facing it and acknowledging that it is part of your story. Stoicism teaches that what matters is not the weight of what happens, but the interpretation we make of it. Denying a wound is disguised weakness. Accepting it is real strength. It's not about wallowing in suffering, but giving it the place it deserves as a silent teacher. How to practice it in everyday life? First, allow your pain to have a space. Write down what you feel. Talk about it with someone you trust, or simply acknowledge out loud what you're going through. Don't disguise it, don't minimize it, because every time you do, you make it heavier. Acknowledgement is the first step to releasing the burden. Second, transform pain into learning. Ask yourself, what is this wound showing me that I wouldn't have seen otherwise? Perhaps it reveals your need to set boundaries, to value your time more, to let go of what you can't control. The advice here is to create a ritual of reflection, either in a journal or in moments of silence, where you turn each painful experience into a lesson for your future. Another tip is to avoid the trap of comparing yourself to others' pain. Many invalidate what they feel because they believe others have it worse. But your pain is yours and deserves respect. The fact that someone else suffers differently doesn't mean that yours is less. Honoring your pain is giving it legitimacy, regardless of its size. It's also vital not to turn pain into identity. Recognizing it doesn't mean carrying it like a flag. The danger of denying it is that it controls you from the shadows, but the danger of embracing it too much is that you end up defining yourself by it. The balance is in accepting it, learning from it, and then moving forward with your head held high. Finally, remember that honoring your pain is also giving it a purpose. You can use it as a driving force to build a stronger life, as a push to not repeat old chains, as a reminder of your resilience. Each scar is a mark that you survived, and far from weakening you, it makes you more aware and firm. Denying your pain is living in deception. Honoring it is living in truth. And when you accept it, you transform it into strength, into clarity, and into a testament that your dignity is not broken by wounds, but is strengthened by them. 10. Walking upright with dignity. Dignity is like a spine, invisible but indispensable. You can try to move forward hunched over to please, bend to fit in, or kneel so that others are not uncomfortable, but each time you do, your spine cracks a little more. And without it, sooner or later, there is no strength to hold you up. Walking upright is deciding that your worth does not depend on others' gaze, but on the firmness with which you choose to live. Whoever walks with dignity does not do so because the path is easy. They do it because they know that bending to the unjust, the humiliating, or the degrading never compensates. Stoicism teaches that true freedom is not in the external, but in the choice to remain intact even in the midst of adversity. You don't need adornments, titles, or approval to hold yourself up. You need principles, consistency, and the courage not to give up the essential. How to put this into practice? First, review your posture in life. Ask yourself, in what situations do I lean too much to not lose affection or approval? Identifying these moments is the start to correct them. The advice is to start with the everyday. Say what you think even if it's uncomfortable. Reject what degrades you even if it leaves you with less company. Stand firm even if your legs tremble. Second, surround yourself with environments that do not demand you to kneel. If you need to diminish yourself to be accepted, that place is not for you. Dignity is not negotiated, it is protected. Create bonds where you can stand upright, where you don't have to hide your voice or disguise your essence. Another piece of advice is to practice silence when they want to provoke you to lower yourself. Silence is not always submission. Sometimes it is the highest act of dignity, because it shows that you do not stoop to the level of those who seek to drag you down. Learn to distinguish between the silence that protects and the silence that chains, and always choose the former. Finally, commit to yourself not to back down on what you know is right. Dignity is strengthened with each decision that supports it, from the smallest to the largest. Every time you choose not to betray yourself, your spine becomes more solid and your stride firmer. Walking upright with dignity is not a gesture of empty pride. It is an act of respect towards yourself and a declaration to the world, I will not live on my knees. That posture, even if it costs relationships, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it hurts, is the only one that ensures you won't lose the most valuable thing, your essence. And when you manage to stand upright, you discover that nothing external has the power to bend you. Thank you for staying until the end of the video. If you watched the whole thing, comment, "I am Stoic," as our secret signal to know that you're a true student of Stoicism. Don't forget to subscribe and give the video a like if you enjoyed it. See you in the next video, and remember, keep cultivating your Stoic mind.